rain, records, and controversy. Let's talk about Chicago.
3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? Todd Brown, That Racing Show. Thanks for dropping by for this pit stop segment. Post-Chicago. So much to talk about here. I'm going to go ahead and just say this right off the bat. I'm going to be weighing in on my own opinions, my personal opinions, the good and the bad, which might not mesh with everybody else's views, but that's okay because that's what we're here to do, is talk racing and discuss it. So I hope so many people put their comments down below and we can talk about it all. Now, interestingly enough, last night I put out a poll on YouTube here to see if Chicago was a bust or no. And surprisingly to me, 74% of the people said no. It was a great race. Only 26% said that they didn't enjoy it. And I'll be honest, this was some statistics that I didn't see happening right after that. But I think through the day, as the race progressed, a lot of people changed their views and went from being angry about everything that was going on to the final outcome, made them appreciate it more. But anyways, I just want to first start out here by saying, for the Xfinity guys, I really felt bad for them. So many guys out there, teams putting together sponsorship deals and everything to run this race, and so many eyes on the NASCAR series this past weekend. And I feel for them not being able to completely run their race, and probably the shortest race ever in NASCAR history. But I completely get where they were coming from, because not long ago, within the last year, there was a 13-year-old girl that was struck by lightning in Garfield Park in Chicago. And also with the electrician who unfortunately lost his life on Friday, setting up for the race. I can definitely see why they didn't want any other incidents happening over the weekend. And not only was this NASCAR's policy, but this was also the city of Chicago's policy. So I completely get everything that went along with that. Now, here we go to the racing and the cup action. As I say, I got some good points and some bad points. And you go call them bad. I'm just going to call them things that I just didn't kind of appreciate or take in, maybe the way some other people did. But for me, the whole racing situation did not resemble a NASCAR race. And while this is good and adds more to the visuals and the scenes and everything else, it makes me wonder whether people who were catching the race for the first time, if this is the way they depict the Cup Series, and then after this, when they see a regular oval race or a speedway race, that they're going to be saying, this is not what I saw before, and it's going to be a distraction to them, or are they going to get more addicted to it and become lifelong fans? So a lot of questions I have right there. But for me personally here with the surface itself, while it was very interesting and obviously quite racy, I still did not like that there was no runoff rooms, the inner walls, narrow turns, things of that nature that, unfortunately that's just the way the racetrack had to be, but it's very fortunate in other situations with it. But still, I would rather see a racetrack where there is runoff room, more areas to pass, and just some things like that. We got to be honest here. For the first part of that race, it was a lot of follow the leader, just a lot of things that were going on. It was interesting to see the progression from the rain tires over to the slicks and the things that went along with that. But that's one of the big questions I have right now is, how would this have turned out whether there wouldn't have been any rain? If it would have just been clear, sunny day, would the weekend have turned out the same way as it did? Would the racing have been better? Would it have been boring? Many questions, and we're going to get to more of that here at the end. But one of the other things I have issues with is that the champions of this sport, right off the bat, right after the green flag, started having problems. I mean, we got Kyle Busch into the tire barrier. Still surprised he was able to back that car out of there and it not be damaged more than it was. But then following that, we got Martin Truex into the tire barriers, going around backwards so much. And this again made me wonder, for people who are just now taking in NASCAR for the first time, knowing these are the champions of our sport and they're spinning out like this, made me wonder if this made it look bad for the drivers of our series. And then to follow it up with somebody coming in for the very first time into the Cup Series and winning in his very first race, does it make the drivers look like they're not as experienced as what they should be? Or does it just show that road course racers just have a special talent that the NASCAR drivers don't have that run in typical races? Now, the one other thing here I just want to discuss about this is that with the road course races like this, when they bring in the road course ringers, it's unfortunate to me that a regular series regular has an opportunity to get into the playoffs with these, but in this case, lost it. Justin Haley obviously had a great run. Could have probably won that race had it not been with Shane being out there. But again, he's got the same opportunities the rest of the year, and he has as much opportunity to win that race as Shane did. So, but it brings up a lot of questions that I see a lot of people talk about. And again, want your views on all of this. Now, talk about Shane. I'm going to call him SVG just so we don't have to keep going over this and me mispronouncing his name over and over. But, man, what a race by him. I mean, obviously, he showed these guys how he can get it done in road course racing. And very obvious, he's got way more experience in these cars, these styles like this. And it brings the question to me, what happened to NASCAR in Australia? Because back in the late 80s into the 90s, there was the NASCAR Australia League. And there were some drivers from over here that went over there to run. There were some drivers from over there that come over and tried their hand in the Cup Series back in the day. Of course, Marcus Ambrose being the one who probably most famous over the years. But there were ones prior to that back in the 90s who tried their hand in this. And, if you've never checked out any of this, you can go back and see a lot of different things on YouTube and do research on it. Might even do an episode on it. I'm actually friends with a guy who ran in the Australian series, and we do a lot of talking. So probably be something that we'll bring up later on in an episode. But with that, the NASCAR Australia series kind of got put to the side because the V8 supercars come along and they took the sponsorships, they got TV deals, and you see why right here, because these guys are some tremendous drivers. And now I'm very interested to see if Shane comes back to run some more races and how he can do on the ovals and short tracks, things of that nature, because I like his footwork. I like the pedal work. It's something that obviously you don't see in NASCAR anymore. So you have to question, is that a big advantage for him? And is it something that maybe drivers will start practicing more to be doing their feet work that way? Now here I want to talk about the good part of everything, because obviously this attracted a lot of attention. It was a beautiful skyline to see. It was a lot of newness to it that I myself enjoyed. It was kind of neat to see some different things from the average everyday racing. Again, I go back to say, question how it would have all played out had it been a nice sunny week. But still, I think for an overall event, pretty much turned out to be what NASCAR wanted it to be as far as making the event successful for the racing, I guess. A lot of it was quite boring, but as far as the end, turned out to be a pretty decent end and make a lot of headlines, a lot of stories that are going to keep evolving after this. And I have to say, with NASCAR working to help rebuild some of the old fan base, and what I mean by this is bringing North Wilkesboro back in, the talks of possibly bringing Rockingham back. This is something a lot of us old-time race fans and racers want to see happening, and I do see NASCAR taking steps to make this happen. So for me personally, I can't say that I am disgusted with NASCAR for doing what they're doing, with trying some new things like this. I do have questions of whether this is going to be a long-term thing, because if you look at the Roval, when Charlotte Motor Speedway first introduced the Roval, had a lot of excitement, gathered a lot of attention, but slowly over time, it's lost a little bit of its luster. So much, in fact, that there's talks about possibly going back to running the oval in the fall. So a lot of questions out here if this is something that's going to continue to grow, if other cities are going to want to be part of this, or if it's kind of a fad that's going to fade out over time. I just want to finish this up by saying I'm so glad that it was a pretty safe race outside of the weather issues. A guy did get out there on a racetrack and did some little hot laps and paying the price for that. But all in all, seems to be a pretty safe weekend, and I'm so glad to hear that. Again, I question whether the weather would have changed some of that if it hadn't been raining, pouring rain. Torrential rains that took place there. I've seen videos today of people up to their necks almost in water. So crazy weekend in Chicago. But again, I want your opinions on everything here. Tell me how you feel about it. Do you want them coming back? And people who replied to the poll, give me some definitions of what you saw as a success. And people who didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like about it. But either way, hope everybody's having a great week. Got more coming this week. And as always, we'll see you at the checkered flag.